Hiya, my name's Charlie, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to today's video. So today's video, as you can tell from the title, it's going to be a goals video slash wishes, because wishes sounds more magical, and that is the energy that I want to channel for this year. I need the magical, loveliness. Yeah, that's what I'm wrapping myself up in this year, or aiming to. Cross fingers. So what I'm going to do first of all is go through last year's reading and talk about last year's reading, like the Storygraph stats, and then also go through last year's goals, and then I will then go into this year's wishes, and also definitely stay tuned because I am going to be giving you guys a couple of sneak peeks and slash like exclusive things that plans for this year. So definitely stay tuned because I promise you there's some exciting things I'm going to show you guys. Right, I'm going first of all to go through like I said, the Storygraph stats. So the first book I read last year was the Final Year by Matt Goodfellow. This was a novel told in verse, and picture on screen. And this was a novel told in verse, and yeah, I think I read it on like New Year's Eve night, and then finished it like literally like within the first hours of 2024. Yeah, it was like an okay book. It was okay. It was. I think it did get listed for some prizes actually, and it does talk about grief, so it is like it's a middle grade book. So it was. I don't really remember a whole lot about it other than like these heavy themes it was talking about. So yeah, I would recommend it, but it wasn't like a favorite or anything necessarily. Anyway, so yeah, the last book I read then also was The Grumpus by Alex T. Smith. This is a picture book slash children's book, so it was just so wonderful. I kept it. It's a book that I reread. I read it. I found it not last year, the year before, and I just adored it. And it's a story that is just so much fun because it's about this monster who has never really understood why everyone else loves Christmas, and it's that sort of grumpy sunshine book. So yeah, it was a really it's a wonderful picture book, and it's one I'll keep revisiting because it fills my heart full of joy and again magical energy. So yeah, 100%. Yeah. The longest book it says I read was Shadows at Noon by Joya Chatterjee. This was one that was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Nonfiction last year, and definitely one that I was pleased I read. That was 864 pages. So yeah, it was a chunkster, and I did take my time with it. Shortest book I read was 10 Poems About Gardens by Monty Don, and this was a poetry collection that my lovely friend Jack sent me. So yeah, right. Excuse my red nose. I have got a cold. So yeah. And right. Right, moving on to top genres. I'm gonna just flash those on screen here because I feel like the Storygraph genres aren't necessarily accurate, but I will show you them anyway because it gives you like an idea of like my reading taste if you are new to my channel. It says that the least time spent on a book, meaning the quickest I read a book, was The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimmons, and this was a book I read in a day. Apparently, I do feel like I do have a memory of it. It was a queer YA romance, if I remember rightly, and it was really good. I remember really chomping through it and loving it. So yeah, and that was a present for my lovely friend Charlie. The longest time I spent on a book was Shadows at Noon by Joya Chatterjee. I can't see. I will put on screen how many days I spent reading it. I think it was quite a few hundred. I definitely didn't rush it, and like I said, I did pause reading it when I couldn't read anyway. So yeah, but yeah, that's probably not surprising given it the fact that it's the longest book. Also on the on my TBR. Right, and then going through most read authors. My top read author last year was Agatha Christie. It says like I read 3 books. I feel like I read more books than that. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe because in my mind, I feels like I read a lot more than that. And then it says I read 2 books by Terry Pratchett, which I definitely think I 100% read more than 2 books because I must have done. Anyway, I will see that. And either which way, they're definitely my top read authors. And then Sophia Sinclair, I remember reading obviously her memoir and then her poetry collection. Right. The next thing I'll quickly show you like a screen record of my 5-star books from last year. So you can see that. now we're going to go through and talk about my last year's reading goals and see how I did with them. So my first reading goal was to read big books. I wanted to read 5 big books last year, and spoilers, this will be a goal that carries forward because I always like to try and like put a focus in my reading on really trying to read big books, because it's so easy to get carried away with the smaller ones because obviously you can like get them done in one sitting. So anyway, I did manage to read 5 big books. I actually read, so according to this, I read Rise of the World Eater by Jamie Littler, and that was at 502 pages. I obviously read Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. That was on my favourites of the year list last year. I loved that book with all my heart. I read the Lost Love Songs of Boise Sing by Ingrid Persaud. I do think this could be listed for the Women's Prize for Fiction this year, and it was a very good book. So yeah, and that was at 538 pages. Oh, I didn't say Cloud Cuckoo Land was 580 pages. And I've also read one of the first big books I read last year was Fane, and that came in at 724 pages. That was the second biggest book I read last year. And then obviously Shadows at Noon, which was the biggest book I read last year. So that's a tick. Then the second goal I had was to reread, and I put to reread 10 books. I believe I completed this. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I won't go through all of that, of which ones I read. Yes, so then I had the Brooks Boost books, and yeah, I managed to read all 10 of those. I definitely completed my Brooks Boost books. Tick. The next thing on my list was the Charlie Challenge books, and I read 9 out of the 10 books, so I'm counting that as a tick. I did not unhaul. I had originally had a plan to unhaul the ones I didn't read, but I'm actually keeping Daughter of Fortune by Isabella Lunday, and I'm keeping Washington Black. Washington Black I'm going to use for one of the prompts. I think it's at February's Ben Reads Good prompt, which that's another thing I'm going to get onto in a minute. That's 15 letters exactly, so I'm going to use that for one of this year's challenges. But yeah, I'm gonna count that as a tick. It wasn't completely perfect, but I still think I did enough of it to count it as a tick. Then the next 2 challenges I'm gonna put together because they are they're Indigenous books challenges. They're the Native Lit Challenge and the Studies Readathon, both of which are happening, I think, again this year. So yeah, and I managed to do for the Native Lit Challenge, I read 2 out of the 4 books, and then for the Studies Readathon, I read 2 out of the 4 prompts, and then for the Studies Readathon, I read 3 out of the 5 prompts. So that's like half. I know I could do better. I do obviously have a plan to always try and read more books by Indigenous. I always have a plan to try and read more books by Indigenous and Native authors. I've got some I want to read this year already, and I am planning on, again, spoilers, adding the Native Lit and the Studies Readathons to this year's goals as well. So / wishes. Right. Then 9th on my list, I've got like 3 more goals I think on here. Was to read. This is going to be such a long video. I'm so sorry, everybody. Right. Read 5 nonfiction. I'm not going to go through the nonfiction I read, but I read 35 nonfiction last year. I think 24% of my reading last year was nonfiction, largely thanks to the Women's Prize for Nonfiction. And I loved. I think half of my favourites last year, more than half of my favourites last year, which I'll link that video in the card above, was actually nonfiction. That's how much I loved the nonfiction I read last year. Then number 10 was obviously library books, because I always have a focus on trying to make sure I actively am borrowing books regularly from the library. And the books that I read from the library was I read 21 books. My goal was for 5, and I read 21. I borrowed way more than that. I probably borrowed maybe like triple that number. I always just pick up a load of books every time I'm in the library and just take them home with me. And obviously, but yeah, which I think we should all be encouraged to do, because obviously that's how we keep our libraries open. Then number 11 was to continue with doing the faves of the months list, which I did, and I will go through what my books I picked from that because they are I think some of them are slightly different from my favourites. I think. Let me have a look. Right, we'll go through the favourites of the month's list. So January, I had Hungry by Grace Dent, which was in my favourites. February, I put How to Say Babylon by Sophia Sinclair. That was listed for the Women's Prize for Nonfiction last year, and I just obviously loved it as soon as I read it. March was Brotherless Night by V.V. Ganashanathan, which was the winner of the Women's Prize for Fiction last year. April, I put As Boulder by Eva Balthazar. I just love that book. Again, that was in my favourites. May, I put Far From the Madding Crowd, which was obviously my favourite by Thomas Hardy. So that was obviously my favourite book of the year last year. So far, it's everything that's been on my favourites, but there are a couple that have not been were not on my favourites. Going to appear, I promise. Then in June, I put Hidden Fires by Sarish Hussain. I actually saw her at the Women's Prize live, and I was going to read her book anyway because I loved her first book. But she spoke. I heard her speak about Hidden Fires, and she really sold it. And yeah, so it was a really good book. Obviously, that was why it was on my favorites. And this is a book about sort of partition, but it's also about sort of two timelines. You're hearing from the granddaughter of a child, and then talking to a girl talking to her granddad, and it's also then going back in time, sort of telling the story of what happened to the family and stuff. It's just such a gorgeous book. So one that I don't feel like got talked about enough last year. So yeah, definitely check it out. July was James by Percival Everett. That was like, I didn't really read obviously much in June or July actually, but those two books really definitely stood out, and James was obviously a book that everyone was talking about last year. August, I read The Love Songs of Boise Singh, and so that was my favourite for the month, and again by Ingrid Persaud. Then in September, my favourite was The Deep by River Solomon. This wasn't one that was on my favourites of the year, but River Solomon is like one of my favourite authors for sure. Like every single book by them I've read, I've loved. They've got a new one coming out this year called Model Home, and like literally in February, and I'm so excited for it. Yeah, The Deep was again talking about generational trauma, and it's sort of a mermaid who gets given the knowledge. I think it's the knowledge, and it's this knowledge of all of the ancestors that have been before her, and it's sort of again, like I said, talking about generational trauma. But then also there was like a romance in there as well, which I loved, a queer romance in there, which I loved. Yeah, I just really loved it. Obviously, that was why it was my favourites that month. Then October, I put The Hobbit was my favourite by J.R.R. Tolkien, which again wasn't on my favourites of the year, but was a favourite. I loved it. Then November was Raising Hair by Chloe Dalton, which wasn't my favourite. And then Cloud Cookie Land was my December favourite, which again was on my favourites. So yeah, I've only got one more challenge that from last year. Last year was my final challenge that I set for myself was, and I completed that. I read 4 books, 4 Audrey classics, and I'll put a picture on screen of those books. Yeah. Moving on now onto this year's version, and this year, like I said, I'm going to be calling them the 2025 Wishes, which is something I saw on Olivia's channel, Olivia's Catastrophe. So I will link her channel in the description, because like I said, I saw this and I was like, do you know what? This is exactly what I need for 2025. Need lots of magical, wonderful energy. So yeah, the first of which is going to be the same as one of the last year's goals, which is read 5 big books. So yeah, I always think 5 is a good number because I feel like it's quite achievable, and it means that it's just very low pressure. Obviously, I think lots of people are going to be doing things with 5 this year because it's 2025. So yeah. Then my number 2 is to read my friends' favourites. I have gone around and asked some of my lovely booktube friends / real friends, and I've written a list of some of their favourite books. I haven't obviously managed to ask everybody yet, so if I haven't asked you, it doesn't mean that you're not my friend. It's just that I'm going to start slow, and I'm going to just gradually work through them. This is going to be a long-term project, and something that I do over the course of like a time, and I'll probably do like maybe a vlog for it every 5 books. I don't know, we'll see. Like I said, I'm being gentle with myself. Right, so then The third goal on my list is to do the Ben Reed Good Challenge, which I think I forgot to mention from last year's tell you how I did last year. Last year I managed to do every single one. What I'll do is I'll put my Instagram in the description, because on my Instagram that's where I do all about my Read Good Challenge on there. So yeah, go follow me on my Instagram. It's yeah, that's the best place to find out how I'm getting on with that, most likely. Unless you guys want regular updates with that, in which case request in the comments below. I'm also going to continue. My fourth goal would be the fave books of the month list, because I like doing that. And as you can see, sometimes not every single book makes the favourites of the year. So I do think it's interesting. The fifth goal, which I am going to do its own announcement for, but I'm going to give you guys a little exciting heads up for it. This is not the most exciting thing I'm telling you about today, but this is, well, to me, it is like one of the most exciting things. Anyway, I'm going to tell you what it is. It's the I'm going to be hosting my very first readathon by myself, which is, I'm going to be calling it the Books for Bowel Cancer, which is going to be a readathon in April, because that's Bowel Cancer Awareness Month. And so I'm going to put on screen the board, because the earlier I share this, the quicker you guys can get it. And also it's sharing on the board, as you can see, which I'll go through kind of quickly now. It goes through the symptoms of bowel cancer, and also has a prompt for each one of them. So yeah, this is going to be something. This is something that I'm super passionate about, and I'm going to talk more about that, like I said, in its own video. But I'll quickly run through the prompts with you, because you guys are here and watching, so I appreciate you. so there's going to be 5 prompts, and four of those are reading prompts. So it's very, very low key, but it's going to be going throughout the month of April. And then yeah, you can, like I said, my Instagram is going to be linked below. And what each prompt has, I talk about the symptom first, and then I'll link the prompt with it. So as you can see from the title, from the board, I've got symptom: bleeding from your bottom / blood in your poo, and the prompt for that is red on the cover. Then in the top far left corner, I've got symptom: losing weight but you're not sure why. And this for the prompt for this will be a book with fewer than 400 pages. Then back to the left hand side, we've got symptom: a change in how often you poo, or regularly having diarrhea or constipation. And the prompt for that will be: read a book that is different to you from your norm. So it's different genre / format, etc. Then back over to the right hand side, I've got symptom: feeling tired all the time but you aren't sure why. And I've got the prompt for that will be as a self-care prompt. This is going to be one of the self-care prompts, which is to do something to treat yourself, e.g. have a bath or watch a movie, or however you do your self-care. The final symptom, and then I'll tell you the prompt, is a symptom is a pain or lump in your tummy. And the prompt I'm doing with that is a book that you have been avoiding, or revisit a soft DNF. So, and then I've obviously, as you can see from the board, I've got the symptoms of bowel cancer in the center of it. And the most important thing with this is, obviously, if you do have any of these symptoms or if you're worried about any of these symptoms, contact your GP, and I will link the Bowel Cancer UK website in the description as well. So this is going to be happening in April. I'm hosting it by myself. I'm very nervous for it, but then this is something that is so important, and this is why I was like, I want to put this. I'm going to share this board early. I will, like I said, have its own video for this, but I really wanted to talk about this in my goals video and share the board early, because sharing the symptoms of bowel cancer is really, really important, and it can help save yours or someone that you know's life, obviously. So yeah, that's why I'm sharing I wanted to talk to you about it early. Stuff. So yeah, I hope you guys lots of you will join in, please. Right, the next of the my wishes is a lot less serious. It is ideally to keep my physical TBR below 50, and obviously to read what I own. This is every single booktuber's wish, every single goals video, I'm sure. wish number 7 is to try and do more crafting, and I put on here that I want to do at least 5 crafting projects. I can talk about this on this channel if you like, so if any of you are interested in crafting things, let me know, and then I may try and like record which ones I do as I do them. If you're interested, let me know in the comments. Then my number 8 is to walk more and be conscious, and to take time to take the fresh air in, and obviously prioritize it. So because it's something, I feel like it's such an obvious thing, but we're so lucky that where I live, like I live in such a pretty place as well. So and I really want to just make an effort to make sure I'm going outside more, and yeah, obviously for health reasons, etc. My number 9 one is quite a funny one. It is to complete more puzzles, and I put 3 minimum. So I love doing puzzles. They're such a good self-care. We were saying about self-care. They're such a good self-care thing for me, and yeah, they really like relax me. So yeah, that's on here. And my number 10, my 10th wish is to go on adventures and to say yes and have lots of fun, because prioritizing prioritizing fun is definitely my number 1 thing for this year, and saying yes and not being scared and not getting in my own head and letting my fear stop me, like 100%. I want to just be pushing through that. Yeah, so that is definitely, again, one of the most important goals for this year. Obviously, we get then so there's 2 more things I'm going to talk about actually, and then I can actually show you. Well, the last thing is the exciting thing. So number 11 I've got is to read less than 100 books, which I feel like saying this to you guys, you'll probably be like so, cause some people reading 100 books, obviously we're all very different, but reading 100 books is a lot to some people, and then reading 100 books is nothing to some other people. But basically I want to read less than I did last year, because I want to focus more time on other things, because there were times last year when I couldn't read, and because I felt like I couldn't read because of obviously losing Alice, and I was just so overwhelmed, obviously with loads of things, other than life stuff as well. It wasn't just Alice, obviously. But yeah, and I felt very lost when I couldn't read. Every single time when I've had stressful things in my life, and that's the first thing to kind of drop off, then I feel like I go into sort of a tailspin. And I think it's because such a lot of my focus is on reading, and I really want, not that that's a bad thing because it's still a comfort to me, but I really want to change my mentality and shift my main focus from reading. Like, I want to enjoy reading. It's still going to be a hobby, but I want to sort of focus on life outside of reading. So that's why I put read less than 100 books. So that's going to be like a goal, which is like about 8 books a month. I think I've worked out if I read 8 books a month, that will help me to do that. So I don't know how that's going to work when the women's prize stuff happens, which is again going to be the next thing I talk to you about. Right, so the last thing and the most sort of like exciting thing arguably on here is that I'm going to talk to you about is obviously the plod along. I'm with myself and Jem are continuing with the plod along. I know you guys know this, but yeah, so obviously, as I said, you guys know that we created the plod along with our wonderful friend Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, whose channel I will link in the description. And you guys, I'm sure you guys know about the plod along. So this was originally designed because the 3 of us loved the Women's Prize so much, and yeah, so we wanted to have a space where we could talk to everybody about it, and then it sort of became its own thing, and where we we have loads of guests on every week, and we play games, and we just basically have loads of fun, and we talk to people about obviously what we're reading with the Women's Prize, and it's like our little plod along community. You guys know this. So we're continuing with that this year, but myself and the girls wanted to have set up some things in sort of memory of Alice, which there are going to be other things this year. This is not by any means the only thing that's happening this year. So watch this space for the other things, because yeah, you'll see that as we go this year. But one of the things that I spoke to the girls about was that about creating specifically bookmarks. You guys would have seen on the community tabs. And when I say the girls, I'm talking about the lovely, wonderful Jack from Spread Book Joy as well, because she hosts the FOMO Book Club with Jem, and that was something the three of Jack and Jem and Alice hosted created the FOMO Book Club together. So so myself, Jem, and Jack decided that I talked about having some like merch or something, sort of like stuff. So someone mentioned bookmarks. I cannot remember who. I think it may have been Angela that initially said about it, actually, and I can't remember either which way. So we've created a set of. So I've created 4 bookmarks, one for each of the girls. So one for an Alice bookmark, a Jem bookmark, a Jack bookmark, and a Charlie bookmark. And today now, the thing I want to show you is that we just designed these bookmarks, and they're literally in front of me. I can see them here in the boxes here, and yeah, they're going to be sold on Etsy on the 12th of February, which is obviously the launch of the Plod Along / the launch of the Women's Prize. So there will be a video going live that day. But today I'm going to show you the Alice bookmark, and so yeah, which is the super exciting thing. So yeah, this isn't the easiest thing to talk about, so excuse me for being so bumbly. Right. All right. So yeah, so I made this. One of Alice's favorite colors was blue, so I wanted this bookmark to be blue, and you can see we've got a giant bookshelf, because obviously that's Alice and the giant bookshelf, and then we've got a pile of books on top is like a tabby cat, which is obviously meant to represent Harry, which was Harry, it was her cat. So so it's glossy one side, can you see, and it's very shiny. I'm sorry. And then on the other side we've got, it's a matte finish, and as you can see, it says Plodders Forever, #Plodders Forever, and it's got the FOMO logo there with obviously a little heart. So yeah, I feel like Alice would have liked this. It's obviously in and it says I have way too many books, which was Alice's saying on her channel, and it's in the font that she used to use on all of her thumbnails. So obviously that's why we did that. I hope you guys like it. Been so excited to show you, and I can't wait to show you Jem's and Jack's and my bookmarks as well. And all of the proceeds from all of the profits from these bookmarks will go to the Book Trust, which is a charity that helps support young readers and helps makes books accessible for young readers and families. So yeah, I will link the Book Trust in the description, actually, if you want to go ahead and go and find out more about that as well. But yeah, this is a charity that, this is a topic close to Alice's heart. Alice was always all about encouraging young people to read, getting more kids to read especially, and making books accessible to children. So yeah, so I hope lots of you are excited by these bookmarks, and hopefully lots of you will buy them. They will be available individually and also in sets. There is limited numbers at the moment, but if they do for any mad reason sell out, I am planning on restocking them as soon as that happens. So if that happens. But yeah, this is what a thing. So yeah, I hope that lots of you guys will be excited and buy them. Let me know what your goals are for 2025. Let me know if you're going to join in with the Books for Bowel Cancer. I hope lots of you will with that as well. And yeah, I hope that lots of you will be excited and buy the bookmarks. I will have it. The bookmarks will have their own video, like I said. I don't know what I said, on the 12th of February, on the day that they are launching. They're going to be sold on Etsy. So yeah, yeah. But in the next few videos to come, so I'll be having I'll probably put a poll up actually and see what you guys are most interested in for my next video. I'm either going to do I've got the Women's Prize for non-fiction predictions, and I've also got my books I got for Christmas. So yeah, let me know which video you want to see first, and I will, in each of those videos, I will show you an exclusive. I will probably show you Gem's and Jack's bookmarks in one of each of those videos, and I'll save my bookmark for the launch. So yeah. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry it's been such a long video. Yeah, tell me how you are. Have a conversation with me. I'm always grateful for talking to you guys. You guys are the best. If you've managed to make it this far in the video, give me a blue heart emoji, because that's sort of a blue heart for the bookmark / Alice's thing. So yeah, do that in the comments if you're still here. Sending you lots of love. Take care.